Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love to see you join me. And don't forget to like and let me know what you think in the comments. My name's Jake and I'm what you might call an Dorsey, type of guy at least in my head. I love the idea of nature, crisp air, massive trees, getting away from the constant city noise. But real talk, I'm also a total creature of comfort. Give me Wi-Fi and easy takeout any day. So when my buddy Mike suggested a week-long cabin trip in the Appalachian mountains, I was like, maybe. Mike, though, that dude's a legit mountain man. Seriously, I think he sleeps in hiking boots. He totally sweet-talked me into it, promising this rustic but comfy cabin, yeah, right, with limited electricity and spotty cell service. The thing that really got me to say yes, price. Mike's Uncle Earl owns the place and was letting us crash there for practically nothing. Apparently, it was a perk for Mike doing these maintenance checks on the property twice a year. He just shoved this crumpled piece of paper at me, all casual, like, here's some guidelines. Uncle Earl's a bit eccentric. I should have paid way more attention to that paper. Seriously, way more. Guidelines my foot. They were a list of rules. And not just any rules, but rules specifically for the hours between 11:15 p.m. and 3:33 a.m. It sounded like the setup for a really bad joke or some kind of elaborate prank. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. We rolled up to the cabin in the late afternoon. The drive, way longer and bumpier than Mike let on. And rustic. Yeah, if you stretch rustic to mean almost falling apart. The cabin was basically one big room with a loft for sleeping, a tiny kitchen area, and a bathroom that looked like it was straight out of the Brady Bunch era. Still, it had this weird charm, Totally tucked away in the thickest woods you could imagine. With this creek babbling nearby, super chill background noise. The air was crazy clean, and the quiet, once you got used to it, was almost intense. Mike, Mr. Outdoorsy, immediately gets to work on his maintenance, which was mostly poking around the generator, messing with the wood stove, and checking the water pump. Me, I was unpacking and desperately trying to get a cell signal. Epic fail on that front. As it started getting dark, we built a fire pit outside, cooked some hot dogs, and went full on marshmallow roasting mode. It was actually perfect. Exactly the kind of escape I needed. We just chilled, talking about everything and nothing, like old friends do. Fire crackling, crickets chirping, you get the picture. Around 10:30 p.m., Mike lets out this massive yawn. All right, man, I'm gonna crash. Early start tomorrow. Gonna try and find that old hiking trail Uncle Earl was talking about. I nodded, feeling pretty wiped myself. Sounds good. I'll probably turn in soon too. Mike clambered up the ladder to the loft, and I hung out by the fire a little longer, just soaking in the peace and quiet. That's when I remembered the paper. The guidelines. I dug it out of my backpack. A single sheet of lined paper, folded in half. Nighttime protocols was scrawled at the top in this shaky, almost kid-like handwriting. Underneath that were the rules. Nighttime protocols rule 1 between 11:15 p.m. and 3:33 a.m. Do now, under any circumstances, leave the cabin. Rule 2, keep the curtains drawn and all windows shut tight. Rule 3, if you hear knocking on the door or windows, do not answer. Do not acknowledge it in any way. Rule 4, if you hear scratching sounds, cover your ears and your familiar tune until it stops. Rule 5, look directly at the woods after 11:15 p.m. Rule 6, if the lights flicker, do not to use any other source of light. Remain in darkness. Rule 7, if you hear a voice calling your name, do not respond. It is not who you think it is. Rule. If you feel a sudden drop in temperature, wrap yourself in a blanket and do not move until it passes. Rule 9, do not to speak above a whisper. Rule 10, if you see something in the cabin that wasn't there before, do not touch it. Pretend it doesn't exist. I read through the list again. A shiver went down my spine, even with the fire still throwing off some heat. It was totally ridiculous, right? Uncle Earl was probably just some lonely old dude with a wild imagination. But still, the cabin being so isolated, the darkness getting thicker, and just the sheer weirdness of the rules started to mess with me. I glanced at my watch, 11:05 p.m. Okay, time to head inside. I carefully put out the fire, double-checked the cabin door was locked, and drew the curtains, just like the paper said. Even checked the windows, making sure they were latched. Part of me felt like an idiot, playing along with this nonsense. But another part, this gut feeling, was getting seriously uneasy. I went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, whispered when I hummed just in case. Don't judge, and climbed into the bottom bunk. Loft was all Mike's. He was already sawing logs up there. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the night sounds. Wind in the trees, owl hooting way off, the cabin settling and creaking. My watch ticked over to 11:15 p.m. And that's when the silence changed. It felt different. Heavier, like it was waiting for something. I was starting to seriously freak when I heard it. A gentle, almost shy knocking on the front door. I froze, heart hammering. Rule number 3, do not answer. Do not acknowledge it in any way. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing it to stop. It came again, louder this time, more insistent. I yanked the blanket tighter around me, breath catching in my throat. I could hear Mike shifting around in the loft above me, but he didn't wake up. Dude was a seriously heavy sleeper. Thank God, or maybe not. The knocking now had company, a faint scratching sound, like nails dragging on wood. Rule number 4, cover your ears and hum a familiar tune until it stops. I clapped my hands over my ears and started humming Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. First thing that popped into my head. My voice was shaky, barely audible even to me. The knocking and scratching just kept going. Felt like forever. Relentless attack on my senses. I just kept humming, eyes squeezed shut, body shaking. Finally, after what felt like hours of torture, it stopped. The silence that followed was almost as scary as the noise itself. I slowly lowered my hands, ears ringing. Lay there, stiff as a board, listening for any sign it would start again. Only sound was my own heart going a mile a minute. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. Still in the bottom bunk, every muscle tense, waiting for the knocking or scratching to come back. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what just happened. Animal, right? Probably just an animal. Raccoon maybe. Deer bumping the cabin. But the knocking, it felt so deliberate, like it was trying to get in, and the scratching, harder to explain away. Glanced at my watch, 11:48 p.m., still ages until 3:33 a.m. Rule number 5 popped into my head. Do not look directly at the woods after 11:15 p.m. I'd already kind of broken rule 3, just by thinking about the knocking. Now I was terrified of breaking any more. Even though my brain was screaming that it was all BS, cabin felt colder now. Seriously dropped in temperature, even with the fire still faintly warm outside. Rule number 8. If you feel a sudden drop in temperature, wrap yourself in a blanket and do not move until it passes. Already wrapped in a blanket, but I pulled it tighter, burrowing deeper into the thin mattress. Tried to focus on my breathing, slow and steady, trying to calm my racing heart. Then I heard it, a voice. Faint, almost a whisper, like it was right outside the window by my head. Jacob. Blood turned to ice. Rule number 7, if you hear a voice calling your name, do know to respond. It is not who you think it is. The voice of it sounded familiar, like my mom's, but twisted somehow. Something else underneath us and cold, hollow. Jacob let me in. Voice was louder now, more insistent, pleading, even, tugging my heart. My mom lived hundreds of miles away. Couldn't be her. Couldn't, but it sounded so much like her. Squeezed my eyes shut tighter, hands clenched into fists. Wanted to scream, yell at it to go away. But rule number 9, do not speak above a whisper. Bit my lip hard, tasted blood. Metallic taste filled my mouth. The voice kept going, worming its way into my head, playing on every fear, every worry I had. Jake, I'm cold, I'm scared, please, getting harder and harder to resist. Voice was so close, so real. Started to doubt myself. What if it was Mom? What if something terrible happened and she somehow found her way here? Totally insane thought, I know. But the voice was chipping away at me. Bem. Lights flickered, once, twice. Then black. Cabin went completely dark. Rule number 6, if the lights flicker, do not use any other source of light. Remain in darkness. Had a flashlight in my backpack, just feet away. Didn't dare reach for it. Darkness was heavy. Total. Just a sliver of moonlight sneaking through a gap in the curtains. The voice stopped the second the lights went out. Silence came back, even heavier than before, like it was pressing down on me. Physical weight. Lay there, paralyzed. Every sense on high alert. Could hear my blood rushing in my ears, heart pounding, shallow breaths. Then I saw it. Faint flickering light. Moving slow through the trees outside the window, small like a candle flame, but it pulsed with this weird, unnatural glow. Knew instantly I shouldn't be looking at it. Rule number 5. Again, I couldn't look away. Light seemed to pull me in. Beckon me. Moved closer, gliding through the trees, creepy grace. As it got closer to the window, I realized, not a candle, a shape, figure showed in darkness, faint light coming from inside it. Couldn't make out details, but I felt the presence. Cold, watching. Squeezed my eyes shut, finally broke away from staring, buried my face in the pillow, whimpering softly. I don't know how long I stayed like that, face buried in the pillow, lost in this vortex of pure terror. Felt like forever. When I finally dared to open my eyes again, the light was gone. Cabin still dark, but the heavy silence had lifted a little. Could hear the normal night sounds again when cabin creaking. Watch glowed in the dark 1:17 a.m. Still hours to go, and I was already completely, utterly freaked out. Even though the voice and the light, things seemed to be gone for now, the fear just hung there. Made it impossible to relax. Every tiny creak of the cabin, every rustle of leaves outside, sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I was hyper aware of everything, clammy sweat, shaky hands, tight chest. Tried to focus on the rules, clinging to them like a lifeline in this sea of crazy. They were the only thing that made any kind of sense, even if it was terrifying sense. Replayed them in my head over and over, trying to figure out what might trigger the next thing. Then I noticed something else. A smell. Faint at first, but getting stronger fast. Sweet, sickly smell like rotting flowers and over-ripe fruit. Kind of familiar, but I couldn't place it. Definitely not a smell that belonged in a cabin in the woods. Sniffed the air, trying to figure out where it was coming from. Seemed to be everywhere. Smell got stronger, cloying, overwhelming. Filled my nose, coated the back of my throat. Smell of decay, something old. Something wrong. Didn't see anything about smells in the rules. This was new. Unaccounted for. My flimsy wall of security, built on those crazy rules, started to crumble. Panic started to bubble up again. Cold wave washing over me. Smell was so intense I started to gag. Covered my mouth and nose with the blanket, trying to filter it out but no use. Permeated everything. Felt nauseous, stomach churning. Squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out everything. Then a noise. Soft slithering sound. Corner of the cabin near the kitchenette. Slow, deliberate, like something heavy being dragged across the wood floor. Held my breath, listening hard. Slithering sound kept coming. Closer, heart hammered against my ribs. Desperate to look, see what was making the noise, but paralyzed by fear. The smell, the sound, the darkness too much. Slithering stopped. Strained my ears. Listening for any movement, silence was deafening. Just my heart pounding. Then felt it. Slight pressure on the edge of my bunk, like something brushed against it. Flinched, body jerking. Squeezed my eyes tighter, teeth clenched, every muscle rigid. Felt another pressure, this time on my foot, through the blanket. Cold. Smoogered for a second. Then, slowly, deliberately, moved up my leg. Wanted to scream, kick, run. Frozen. Trapped by my own fear, pressure kept going. Agonizingly slow climb up my thigh, across my stomach, towards my chest. Breathing shallow, rapid, almost hyperventilating. Felt like I was going to pass out, head swimming. Sweet, sickly smell overwhelming, dizzy, disoriented. Pressure reached my chest. Stopped. Held my breath, waiting. Anticipating what? Didn't know. Just knew it was bad. Really bad. Then felt faint breath on my face. Cold, damp breath. Same putrid smell. So close. Could almost feel whatever it was hovering over me. Whimpered. Low, guttural sound escaped my lips even though I tried to stay silent. Rule number 9 broken. Spectacularly. Pressure on my chest increased. Heavy weight, hard to breathe. Felt something cold, smooth brush my cheek. Lingered there. Then slowly, deliberately moved towards my ear. And then I heard it. Whisper. Voice so low, guttural, barely audible. Right next to my ear. We see you. Not the voice from before. This one raspier, deeper. Pure malice. Something in my mind just snapped. Couldn't take it anymore. Screamed. Long, loud, blood-curdling scream. Ripped through the cabin, shattered the silence. Thrashed wild, kicking, flailing. Trying to get whatever was on top of me off. Scream echoed in the small cabin, bounced off the wood walls, faded into the night. Lay there, gasping for breath. Body trembling like crazy. Sudden release of tension left me weak, dizzy. Broken rule number 9, big time. Consequences. No clue. But the relief of being free from whatever had been pressing down on me, huge. Slowly, cautiously opened my eyes. Cabin still dark, but eyes adjusted enough to see outlines of furniture. Nothing on top of me. Nothing near me. Sat up slow, muscles atching, every nerve screaming. Sickly sweet smell fading, but still there, faint reminder of the horror. Listened hard, straining to hear anything but my own heart's silent pleat. Unnaturally so. Even the normal night sounds seemed gone, like the whole world was holding its breath. Reached for my watch, shaking. 2233. 3 a.m. still over an hour and a half until 3:33 a.m. Eternity. Had to do something. Couldn't just lie there waiting for the next nightmare to start. Needed to get some control back. Flash a little bit. Even backpack. Remembered it. Too scared to use it before, when the lights went out. Rule number 6. But rules seemed to be shifting, changing. Or maybe I just didn't care anymore. Needed light. Swung my legs over the bunk, feet hit the cold wood floor. Moved slow, deliberate, quiet as possible. Reached for my backpack leaning against the wall near the bed. Grabbed it. Heard a noise. Faint rustling sound from the loft mic. Relief washed over me, so strong, almost buckled my knees. Wasn't alone. Mike was here. He could help me. It was all in my head. Bad dream. Meek. Whispered. Voice hoarse, shaky. Rustling stopped. Silence, then slow creaking sound, like someone shifting weight. Mike. Whispered again, louder this time. Then I heard a voice, but not Mike's. Same guttural voice from before. Whispered in my ear, "We see you." JK. Voice whispered from the loft. Chilling imitation of Mike's voice, but with that same evil edge. "Come up here." Froze. Using Mike's voice. Maybe trying to trick me. "Lure me up there. We have something to show you." Voice went on, tone shifting, seductive, persuasive. Knew deep down, chilling certainty I could not go up there. Whatever was in the loft wasn't Mike. Something else. Something evil. Fumbled with the backpack zipper. Fingers clumsy. Finally got it open, pulled out the flashlight. Clicked it on. Hand shaking so bad, beam of light danced all over the cabin. Pointed it towards the loft, ladder empty. Loft itself, shadows. Light not strong enough to reach into the darkness. "Come on, Jake. Don't be afraid." Voice whispered, impatient now. Took a step back from the ladder. Heart pounding, had to get out. Cabin. Voice. Thing in the loft, too much. Turned, stumbled towards the door. Flashlight still clutched in my hand. Reached for the doorknob. Fingers fumbled with the cold metal. Then loud thud from the loft, like something heavy jumped down. Didn't look back. Yanked the door open, ran. Burst out of the cabin. Cold night air slammed into me. Flashlight beam bounced all over the place as I ran. Didn't know where I was going, just had to get away. Away from the cabin, the voice, whatever the hell was in the loft, stumbled through the darkness. Trees loomed up around me, all twisted and menacing. Could hear my own ragged breathing, heart pounding like crazy, leaves crunching under my feet. Didn't dare look back, terrified of what I might see. Ran blind, just followed this faint path, hoping it would take me away from the creek towards the road. Road had to be out there somewhere, right? Even if it was miles away. Cold air burned my lungs, but I didn't stop. Fear was fuel. Primal urge to survive. Woods felt like they were closing in. Darkness alive. Imagined eyes watching from the shadows, whispers in the rustling leaves. Every snap a twig, every hoot of an owl sent a jolt of pure terror through me. Tripped over a root, went sprawling. Flashlight flew out of my hand, skittered away. Scrambled to my feet, hands scraped and bleeding, heart hammering. Groped around blindly for the flashlight. Fingers brushed cold leaves, damp earth. Finally, hand closed around it, grabbed it, switched it back on. Beam of light cut through the darkness. Shone it around, frantic, searching for anything, sign of pursuit. Then I saw it, standing at the edge of the trees just beyond the flashlight beam. Figure. Tall, shrouded in darkness. Couldn't see features. Same figure from before. Flickering light thing. Didn't move. Just stood there, watching silent, menacing. Froze. Breath caught in my throat. Couldn't scream. Couldn't move. Trapped. Caught in my own flashlight beam like a deer in headlights. Figure slowly raised a hand. Long skeletal fingers pointing right at me. Then I heard the voice again. Guttural whisper echoing through the trees. "You cannot escape." A voice seemed to come from everywhere, all around me, suffocating. Wave of despair washed over me. Utter hopelessness. Knew I was going to die. Closed my eyes, waiting for it. Inevitable darkness to swallow me whole, but nothing happened. Waited, body trembling. Mind numbed with terror. Silence stretched on. Just my own ragged breathing. Slowly, cautiously, opened my eyes. Figure gone. Shone the flashlight around, frantic again. Trees. Silence. Nothing else. Didn't understand. Why had it spared me? What did it want? Didn't have time to think about it. Had to keep moving. Get away. Started running again. Faster this time, lungs burning, legs itching. Ran until I couldn't run anymore. Collapsed on the ground, exhausted, terrified. Lay there, gasping, body shaking like a leaf, looked up at the sky. Faint glimmer of stars, barely visible through the trees. Glanced at my watch, 2:07 a.m. Only a little over half an hour left in the 3:33 a.m. If I could just make it, maybe, just maybe, I'd be safe. But even as I thought it, knew it wasn't true. Whatever was out there, hunting me, wouldn't just vanish when the clock struck 333. Trapped in a nightmare. No escape. The whisper hung in the air, chilling promise, shivers down my spine. Pressure on my chest still there. Heavy weight, hard to breathe. Paralyzed by terror, trapped in the claustrophobic darkness of the woods. Completely at the mercy of whatever was out there. Then the scratching started again. But this time not outside the tree. Inside. Inside the hollow tree right next to me, flinched. Body recoiled from the sound. Could feel the vibrations through the wood. Sharp claws scraping against the bark. Getting closer, closer. Squeezed my eyes shut. Tears streaming down my face. Knew it was pointless to resist, to try and escape. Nowhere to go. Scratching stopped. Felt something brush against my hand. Cold. Smooth. Like a snake. Slithered up my arm. Slow, deliberate. Icy tendrils of fear. Wanted to scream. Cry out. Couldn't. Too terrified to make a sound. Just lay there trembling. Waiting for the inevitable. Cold, smooth thing reached my neck, cold around it. Tightened. Slowly, constricting. Breathing getting harder. Gasped for heads for air. Lungs burning. Felt sharp pain in my neck. Like a needle prick. Then another. Sickening horror. Biting me. Pain intensified. Spreading. Wildfire. Strange sensation. Tingling numbness. Started in my neck, spreading outwards. Engulfing me. Senses dulled. Could hear the voice. Guttural whisper. But distant now. Muffled like underwater. Sleep. Voice whispered. Sleep and dream. Felt myself slipping away, losing consciousness, darkness closing in. Welcome oblivion, promised an end to the terror, but even as I faded, knew it wasn't over, just beginning, then dream. Vivid, terrifying, back in the cabin. Twisted, distorted, funhouse mirror version of reality, walls warped, furniture contorted, air thick, suffocating darkness. Standing in the middle of the room, figures, taunt, shrouded in shadow, faces hidden. Same figures from the woods. All pointing lights, all pointing at me. Long, skeletal fingers accusing, condemning, and whispering, voices blending into a chorus of malice. You broke the rules, they whispered. You disobeyed, you resisted. Tried to speak. Defend myself, couldn't. Voice gone, helpless. Surrounded by accusers, figures started to close in, shadows engulfing me. Felt their cold touch on my skin, sharp claws digging into my flesh. Screamed, but no sound came out. Then woke up on the ground outside the tree hollow. First rays of dawn, pale light on the forest floor. Sat up slow, body aching, head throbbing. Weak, dizzy, but alive. Looked at my watch, 3:35 a.m. Time had passed, looked around. Trees clearing hollow oak, everything looked normal. Peaceful, even. Whispers gone, footsteps gone. Footstep, figures gone. Over. But deep down, knew it wasn't really over. Survived the night, yeah. But changed. Scarred, marked by the horror. Stood up, legs shaky. Started walking, didn't know where. Just had to get away from that place. Away from the Appalachian mountains. Away from the cabin. Away from the rules. Walked until I found the road. Walked some more. Finally saw a car coming. Flagged it down. Driver, kind-looking woman. Took one look at me, offered a ride. Didn't tell her what happened. Wouldn't believe me. Just said I got lost hiking, needed to get back to town. Never went back to the Appalachian mountains. Never saw Mike again. Tried calling, texting, emailing. Nothing. Like he vanished. Part of me worries, of course. Okay, still up there, following those insane rules, or worse. But another part darker, selfish part glad he's gone, I don't have to face him. Explain. Relive it. Still get nightmares. Vivid, terrifying. Leave me screaming, soaked in sweat. See the figures in the shadows, hear whispers in the wind. Feel cold touch on my skin. Therapy, meds, tried everything. Nothing helps. Memories burned in, etched in my soul. Obsessed now, researching the Appalachian Mountains, trying to find answers. Some explanation. Skirt old maps, folklore archives, local legends. And that's my story. Still searching, still scared. Still wondering what the hell really happened out there in those woods.